Okay, so we are now going to turn our attention to sustainable packaging, and we'll follow the same format that we've just gone through, where we will hear from three presenters, short, sharp and pithy, and then a panel led by Mary. Okay, so our first speaker on this next topic is Nerida Kelton, on the topic of sustainable packaging, a global perspective. Nerida has worked in the packaging industry for over 26 years, with 24 years working for the AIP, the Peak Industry professional body for packaging, training and education in Australasia, as an active lecturer and trainer in the AIP educational portfolio. Nerida is committed to helping educate and train packaging professionals in the importance of sustainable and circular packaging design. Nerida is also the Vice President of Sustainability and Save Food with the World Packaging Organisation. Please welcome Nerida.
I'm not pithy, but I'm definitely short. So I have 10 minutes, and that's very difficult for me because I can talk about packaging all day. So I'm going to talk to you from the World Packaging Organisation's perspective. And the World Packaging Organisation has 63 member countries around the world that are made up of packaging organisations, just like the AIP. We get together twice a year and we talk every day. And we talk about what are the global perspectives and the challenges and barriers that every single continent has around the world. And the reality, we all have the same problems. They might be slightly different, but we're all challenged with the same things when it comes to sustainability. And when we talk about sustainable packaging, this is what it looks like, guys. It is not simple. This is not an easy path for anyone, and you need your local organisations to support you and help you through this process. But what I'm going to talk about are the loudest conversations at the moment, and these are going to have global implications, and they're going to have implications for you. So anybody in this room, which pretty much everyone, you all have packaging in your businesses. You're all going to be having some of these flow-on effects, and you need to be aware of what's happening around the world. Extended producer responsibility is the loudest conversation that we have. And basically what's happening around the world in every single country is we're putting the responsibility for the packaging back on the brand. It is their responsibility to put it out on market, and they are either going to be incentivised or penalised for what they put on market. And it comes up as a grading system, and depending on the country, you're going to be incentivised or penalised. And it's coming to Australia. And so one of the things that's really, really loud is PPWR. How many people in the room know what PPWR is? Okay, packaging and packaging waste regulations, and they have just come through finally in Europe, and they will have global implications, and they'll have implications for Australia. And it's very much around putting that responsibility back onto the brand. And then all of that has a flow-on effect for the way you design your packaging, the materials that you use, the choices that you make, the alternate materials that you decide on, and making sure that if you are going to follow these regulations, that you're doing the right thing. Recycled content, making sure that you incorporate recycled content. And this is what's happening in Europe. So they are going to have a minimum percentage for recycled content in all packaging substrates, and it's going to come to Australia as well. We're also having a really significant shift globally about certified compostable packaging. And if you actually have time, look at the changes in the compostable packaging directives for the PPWR, because they're shortening. There's very little in certified compostable packaging that's going to be allowed. Also, certifications, really, really important to make sure we have the right certifications when we are using certified compostable packaging. And I don't have time to talk about it now, but certified compostable packaging has one role. It's to capture food waste. To capture food waste so that it doesn't go to landfill. And so there is a role for certified compostable packaging as long as we have the downstream recycling capabilities. The UN Global Plastics Treaty is really, really important because at the moment we have all of these plastics pacts around the world. And they're all working differently, but the UN Global Plastics Treaty is going to have an implication for every single country. because you're going to be regulated. We're going to be regulated in our country to have single-use plastic regulations that are consistent and harmonised across all states. Another thing is single-use plastic regulations. They're going to be sucked up. They are going to sit underneath the Global Plastics Treaty, and we're all going to have far more consistent and harmonised decisions made. Because if you look at single-use plastic regulations in this country, it's embarrassing. There is no consistency or harmonisation across any of the single-use plastic regulations. Container deposit schemes have multiple purposes. Quality feedstock, access for quality feedstock for recycled content for the brands, minimising litter and incentivising consumers. And so if we are all, as the world, going to try and achieve the recycling rates that we need more container deposit schemes. And so the PPWR has regulated that every single EU member state has to have a container deposit scheme, which I think is fantastic. Another one is product stewardship programs. And when you're talking about extended producer responsibility and eco-modulation, which is the incentivising and penalising, you have to have product stewardship programs. And you have to have product stewardship programs to be able to pick up things that can't go through materials recovery facilities, things that can't go through curbside collection. They're still resources. They're still materials with value. It's just our materials recovery facilities or our councils won't pick them up. And I know that Vikas will talk to that really, really critical area that we need to invest a lot more money in and incentivise more PROs and product stewardship programs around the world. Curbside collection and soft plastics programs. This is going to be a really challenging area, but what's happening around the world is that more and more countries are having collection in their stores, in the retail stores. And we just have to make sure that we have the reprocessing capabilities in the end markets to do this, and we know what happened with REDcycle, but it is going to come back. And it is going to come back in return to store. We have 12 trial programs at the moment. We are also going to have curbside collection programs. They're already being trialled all around the world, which is fantastic because it's so much easier for us, right? So if we get a bag, we can put it in, we can put all of our soft plastics in that, put it in our curbside bin and it gets reprocessed. Beautiful. You don't have to worry about taking it to your store. The other thing that's coming is chemical advanced recycling. And this is taking problematic materials like soft plastics and flexibles and creating a circular approach. So circularity by design is taking packaging, putting it back into more packaging. So if we're talking about the circular economy for packaging, this is what we need to do. We need to take packaging and put it back into packaging wherever possible. On-pack and off-pack labelling is really, really important, and this is about taking the consumer on the journey with you. All the brands can do as much work as they like to develop sustainable packaging, but if you don't tell your customer what you're doing and you don't take them on the journey and give them the incentive to be a part of this, then you're failing. And so on-pack and off-pack labelling is about communicating to them, what bin do I put it in? How do I separate those components? Am I putting it in the right bin? Am I a part of the sustainable journey? Am I incentivised to be a part of this sustainable journey? And we're seeing a massive shift with on-pack and off-pack labelling where we now have apps and we also have QR codes. And if you don't know RecycleMate, I'd encourage you to put it on to your phones and it will tell you exactly, just by scanning your packaging, where you can put that. Which bin, away from home collection process, council, drop-off point. Have a look at it, you'll absolutely love it. One of the other things that's coming into Europe is on-pack labelling, which I think is fantastic because we as Australians are actually leading the way. So how to recycle in America, OPRL in the UK and the ARL in Australia are leading the way on really good intuitive on-pack labelling. It's coming in Europe as well. Another thing that's coming, which is so long awaited, is reuse and refill. Designing packaging for reuse and refill should be one of your first choices in your design hierarchy. Reduce, reuse, then we worry about recycle. And so now Europe is actually mandating more reuse and refill, which will have an implication for us as well. And I think that is a really fantastic thing. Now, How do you design all of this stuff? Where do you start? How on earth does a small business know where to start with all of this? Because this is really overwhelming. And we've only started on this journey. The PPWR has only just been regulated. What's about to happen in Australia is coming. And so what we encourage everybody to do is stop and rethink the way you design your packaging. You don't have to design the packaging the way you used to. If you want to have a lower environmental impact, if you want to make sure you have sustainable packaging, have a think about the way you design it. And then look at reduce and reuse. We can support you with guidelines. There are 10 standard principles for sustainable packaging design. The AIP has training courses on the SPGs. There are global packaging design recycling guides available. This was developed by the WPO. It's easy to use. It's intuitive. It isn't just about a material, it's the whole pack. It's the inks, it's the adhesives, it's the cap, it's the bottle. And it can guide you through with a traffic light system and explain exactly how you're designing your packaging. And if you end up in the red, that's okay. You just learn how to shift into the green. One of the most important things with the WPO is we have 63 member countries and they all speak different languages. We have to make sure that every single resource, every single training course is available to everyone. We want to make sure that through the WPO that you can access these tools in your language. And so the first thing that we started doing was designing the guide to be translated. We have 14 languages. They're all free and available for anybody to use. And if you speak a second language and you don't see it on there, come and talk to me because we'd love to be a part of it. In summary, the federal government announced just over 16 months ago that this is coming to Australia. We are going to mandate national packaging design standards. It's not an if, it is coming. So every implication that we have for Europe is going to come into Australia. And you need to start to understand what a circular economy for packaging looks like. From a WPO perspective, we want to design out waste at the start. That's absolutely critical because half of the problem is in the design. And so if we can design more intuitive and innovative packaging at the start that is recycle ready, that does offer a lower environmental impact, we're already ahead of the game. We want to make sure that we're designing with the end in mind, which is recyclability and reprocessing. We want to harmonise design standards because if you're importing or exporting, you've got to understand what's happening overseas as well. Eliminating chemicals of concern is really important, and the loudest one is PFAS. And we also want to make sure we reduce virgin materials as much as possible, eliminate problematic materials, and reuse materials for as long as possible. And if you think about sustainable packaging, it is about reducing your packaging, reusing it over and over and over again as many times as possible. So thank you.